I originally just wanted to be a police officer. I was inspired by this movie I saw when I was about 16. And it was about a couple cops in New York City called the Super Cops, of all things. And they had a great time doing a lot of good, and the community loved them. You know, a couple of white dudes enforcing the law in Bed-Stuy in New York before Bed-Stuy got gentrified. And it just showed the commonality of human beings. And no matter how bad the neighborhood is, there's always more good people than bad people. And they loved these guys. And then also the one thing I didn't realize at the time, these guys were mavericks. I mean, they didn't do what their bosses told them to do. They're very independent. So I wanted to do good things. I wanted to have a good impact. And I started out as being a cop. My father was disappointed. Then I went out and got a job that only required a high school diploma after he'd paid for my college degree. So then he encouraged me to do federal law enforcement. I grew up in Iowa. I'd never been anywhere. Like going to Illinois was a big deal where I grew up. Crossing a state line was a big deal. So I'm talking to a Secret Service agent about being in federal, and he said, yeah, you know, I traveled all over the world with the Secret Service. And I thought to myself, somebody paid you to travel around the world? Like, I'm in. And the Secret Service wasn't hiring, but the FBI was. I didn't know the federal alphabet. I didn't know the CIA from the FDA from the FBI. You know, I didn't know.
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them. So, you know, the Bureau hired me because they were hiring a ton of people. The Secret Service wasn't. Sent me to New York. Didn't want to go to New York. Loved New York. And I was on a SWAT team. Re-injured my knee from college. I tore my knee up. I'm kind of a medium-sized dude, and I figured there are a lot of people much bigger than me on the street. So I was studying martial arts, screwed up the knee, martial arts. Later on, I'm in SWAT and re-injuring the knee. What do you do? Well, we had hostage negotiators, and it didn't look hard. You know, those guys always went out when we went out. They kind of sat around, talked on the phone while we laid in the mud and rain. Like, I could do that. How hard could that be? And initially was rejected for the team. Like, I had no resume. Other than wanting to do it, no psychology degree, no background, nothing. Got rejected. And that was really the key point, because I take initiative and I take advice from the right people. And the woman in charge said, go volunteer on a suicide hotline. So I'm like, all right. Found a hotline, started to volunteer, and that was magic, man. How do you get people to change extreme behavior in extremely short periods of time? Which was just the application of empathy. They called it empathy at the time. Proactive listening is a better term. And just changing people's behavior in 20 minutes. They told us when I first got on the line, you can't stay on a call for more than 20 minutes. And in movies and TV, like, they're on the phone with people for hours. Hours. Richard Branson's book, Losing My Virginity. I'm a fan of Richard Branson. He talks about talking overnight to people that he tried to talk out of suicide. Because in his early days, he's always been a good guy. In his early days, he's doing crisis intervention, crisis hotline stuff overnight. And 20 minutes, you got to be kidding me. And that was really the beginning. How do you, imagine what it's like to sit down with somebody and know that you can get through to them in 20 minutes when everybody else in their family has failed for months. And that's what they taught on a hotline. So that was the beginning of it.
What was the reason for the 20-minute limit? Was there a specific practical reason for it?
Yeah, great question. Because I'm of the thought that there's a practical reason for everything. Like, if you drill down far enough, you're going to find a practical reason. Like, why do Catholics eat fish on Friday? Well, the Pope needed to help the Italian fishing industry. So he says, you know what? It's bad to eat meat on Fridays. But he was really practical. He's a practical dude.
Isn't that how the McDonald's fillet of fish came to be or something like that? Because I think they used to only serve it on Fridays.
Oh, it could have been.
I could be wrong here, but don't quote me on that. But I think it used to only be available on Fridays.
Well, that would be an economic smart move, wouldn't it? All right, so 20 minutes or less. Why? Because also the biggest problem on any crisis hotline is not the people that genuinely need your help. The people that call you to suck the life out of you.
Mm.
And they were called frequent callers. And I found dealing with them fascinating. But if you let one of those frequent callers be the first move in a conversation, you're going to be on the phone for hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then the people that genuinely need help don't get through on the line. And so part of the training was to recognize that person early and then like smell them, if you will. And then draw a clear boundary. Don't be mean, but put a clear boundary up and actually be on the phone with them for less than 5 minutes. Mm. But if you've got sort of that guideline, then in general terms, you're going to handle all your calls in 20 minutes or less. Like I remember the first one that I really caught when my instincts started getting good. And the guy calls in on the phone. He says, "Can I talk to you about something?" And I said, "I'll talk with you." But talking to me was code for I talk, you shut up.
Yep.
And I caught that. I remember catching that. And then his demeanor changed immediately. Like, the ground rules are we talk with each other or we don't talk. Mm. And tiny little lessons like that, it was great.
What's the male-female split on those type of calls?
The manipulative callers were almost all males.
Okay.
And I'm sure, there was some representation of females.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I'd imagine it's very heavily skewed male.
But it was heavy. To my knowledge, it was almost all male. Mm. Interesting. What makes you ask?
What makes me ask? I'm curious of when someone is talking about certain scenarios or explaining certain concepts, I often in my brain have an idea about the type of person or the demographic that may be involved, even if that is not explicitly stated. And so sometimes I ask a clarifying question to see if my assumptions and hypotheses are accurate, even if I don't know exactly why that might be, right? I have an awareness of suicide attempt and actual suicide statistics. And I know that I think attempts, it's more even. I know in terms of actual, suicides that kill a person, it skews heavily male. That's true in the UK. It's true in the US. It's true in Japan. It's probably true in every country in the world.
Yeah. Commonality of humanity.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, who are the people picking up that call and hitting that number?
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Cool. Good question.
Yeah. What are the differences between negotiating someone who is talking someone off the ledge who's threatening to take their own life versus talking someone off the ledge who's threatening to take someone else's life?
All right. So that gets into a whole nother category. Mm-hmm. When I was in a bureau, in hostage negotiation, crisis intervention, it's largely crisis intervention. And there's frequently an element of suicide. But there's a big difference between a guy barricaded in a house threatening to kill himself and his wife, girlfriend, versus a guy standing on a ledge. Mm. The jumper scenario, completely different cat.
Okay.
And the jumper is most often, it's a bargaining situation to some degree. And the guy in the house ain't a bargaining situation. The person on the ledge, there's visibility there. Mm. And they get up there. If you engage in conversation with them at all, if they engage with you at all, they want something. They've gotten up there and they're trying to get visibility. Now they'll if they don't get what they want in 2 or 3 tries, they're going to kill themselves anyway. Mm. But that's much more of a bargaining situation. So the guy up on the ledge wants something if you're talking to him, and which is all in any form of communication. How open they are to communication at the beginning is always the first tell. Like even in business, we apply this stuff to business. Somebody calls in and they only want to know our price. It's a manipulative call. They're playing us. We're the fool in the game. There's a favorite and a fool in every game. If you don't know who the fool is, it's probably you. And what they're doing is they're doing free consulting, due diligence, or competing bid. And there nothing that I learned in suicide intervention, crisis intervention, hostage negotiation, it all applies to business. Because as we were talking before about the universal nature of who's trying to kill themselves, there's a universal nature of human beings, period. Because we were all human when we were first wired. So somebody's calling in, wants our price. We're a competing bid. We don't have a shot at the business. Somebody up on a ledge, very determined, if we're discussing anything, wants something very specific, not really interested in talking about anything other than what they want or getting that data point before they proceed. So it's my job in any situation to dial into how do you see the world? What are you after? Have you been wronged? What's at stake? And then what's happened to you recently? Guy up on a ledge, something has happened in the last 24 to 48 hours that set him off. Probably a combination of two things, personal and professional. And those two cause people to change their behavior, to up the stakes. What I've done up to now hasn't worked, and this has hit me so hard, I got to try something more extreme. So now I know that going in. So guy up on a ledge, I'm fishing for what happened in the last 2 days. Hard, and I know it's there. Now I'm not going to jump to it till you've given me a hint that you might open the door. If it's a loss of a relationship, and my intel tells me before we've spoken that you just, the girl you're in love with kicked you out of the house 48 hours earlier. Now you're up on a ledge. I can't say that until you indicate to me the door's open. That's really the key issue. Like, I could know it's there.
Mm-hmm.
I could have, before we get out on a bridge with you, I could have, yeah, man, Chris has just been a wreck since she kicked him out 2 days ago. And he's been drinking, and he's just all over the place. Witnesses, close friends, everybody's telling me that. I can't get up there and I can't say, look, man, I know you're really hurting over this girl. Because you haven't said anything to me yet. Mm-hmm. Which means you feel I'm trying to manipulate you. So I'm just going to say, you're in a bad spot. Because you're up on a bridge, just trying to hop off. And then I'm going to wait and see if you invite me in. And I'm going to wait for the invitation. And then you're going to feel respect. So I've rambled all over the place.
Yeah, no, that's all good.
on your question.